Sorry, it's just taking a couple seconds to load. All righty, we're good. All right. Welcome, everyone. We are here for the Hill District Plans meeting, and looking forward to sharing with you this evening. Let me just make sure we're sharing the right slides with you. All right, so this is our bi-monthly Hill District Plans meeting, and we are excited to provide these updates with you tonight. We will have one guest this evening, and then Hill CDC will handle the rest of the updates for you. But feel free to ask any questions in the chat, online, or here in the chat box. If you have a question and you are in the audience, feel free to raise your hand and we will call on you so that you have an opportunity to either speak your question or put your question in the chat and we will read it. So here with you tonight is myself, Marimba Malians, President and CEO of the Hill CDC, Chavesha Cheney, Policy and Programs Associate for the Hill CDC. And of course, you all know we are a place-based organization focused on the equitable redevelopment and revitalization of the historic Hill District, where cultural legacy meets future innovation. We are celebrating 35 years of existence. So a little bit about us, you've already heard that, but you're going to hear from Megan Ziegler of the Green Building Alliance this evening. She's going to talk to you a little bit about Community Leap, and then we'll go through some community, some updates for the Hill District Parks Master Plan that City Planning has been working on and that they commissioned. And as you all know, this is a part of our broader master planning effort. But for all intents and purposes, we will do the presentation for this evening, and there will be a deeper dive opportunity to engage with City Planning later. Most of their staff is at a conference this evening, so we are going to provide you updates on that. Freedom Corner, just refresh you on Alcosan and Bedford Choice, and we can answer any other questions that you have. You all know that our mission is really anchored in partnership with residents and stakeholders to create, promote, and implement strategies and programs that connect plans, policies, and people to drive compelling community development opportunities in the Greater Hill District. Our three focus areas are people, place, and policy. We focus on building up the people from an economic development standpoint. So we work with a lot of entrepreneurs. We work with a lot of people who want to become homeowners, particularly of affordable home ownership opportunities, such as vacant homes that we've restored at an affordable rate. We focus on place, so we are focused on the redevelopment of the Hill District's commercial corridor in particular, as well as I mentioned, the acquisition and rehab of vacant, dilapidated properties that would otherwise continue to be underutilized. And we also are involved in rental to a degree, only at a larger scale where we can bring value to the community through affordable rental. Last but not least is our policy advocacy work. And that work is what I say gets us in trouble, but it's good trouble, it's necessary trouble. And it is what we do to advocate on behalf of the neighborhood, specifically to make sure that we are fulfilling the Greater Hill District Master Plan. So the three areas that we really focus on, as I mentioned, are real estate development, which is our commercial core and home ownership, economic development programs, our business and entrepreneurship programs. Please feel free to visit us at hilldistrict.org/smallbiz to learn more about our business and entrepreneurship programs. On a monthly basis, we have a home ownership preparation class called Operation Home in partnership with the Urban League. Please feel free to register for those programs if you are interested in buying a home. And then, of course, you probably know that we are the owners of the New Granada, the historic New Granada building, and also stewarding in a considerable amount of work in an effort to build a Black cultural, commercial, and innovation corridor. And so we do a lot of arts and culture work under that purpose and focus. And as I mentioned, we are focused on advancing equitable development and neighborhood planning. And so the reason why we have these meetings is because we were having a lot of planning happening in the community. It was really difficult for residents to keep apprised of the different plans that were happening. And so we asked our partners to come together on a bi-monthly basis and present or to share updates with us for us to present them to you. So with no further ado, I invite Megan Ziegler from the Green Building Alliance to update you about the Community LEAP program. Megan?
All right, thanks, Marimba. I will start sharing. So as Marimba said, my name is Megan Ziegler. I am with Green Building Alliance. So we are based over in the South Side, and wanted to talk a little bit about the Community LEAPS program that is slowly getting underway. It's taken a little while, but we're really excited as we kind of work through and kind of get it going. So what this program is, and so the Department of Energy really was trying to figure out a way to remove barriers to anyone who's ever had to do a federal grant program. It can be really tedious. And so they were trying to figure out a way to remove those barriers and to provide technical assistance. And so there was the Community's Local Energy Action Program that came out. And so myself and Floor Marion, who I think was at the last meeting, were co-chairing the infrastructure action team as part of the comp plan update. So as part of that process, we were talking about energy, what we wanted to do with it. And one of the things that kind of came up was what do we want to do as far as energy moving forward as we think of moving away from non-renewable fuel sources. And so this opportunity came about. And so based on that and what we had been hearing through that process, submitted an application. But this was really just trying to kind of start to think of like what we really wanted to do. So this was submitted in December of 2021. And then the DOE selected 24 communities in March. And so over the last couple months, we've been working with the technical team and also the NREL as part of this effort to kind of solidify what the scope of work is and kind of get to work. So technical assistance. So NREL is the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, and they are a federal lab similar to what we have NETL, which is a little bit more local based, but their role is to really make sure that they're providing expertise and resources to the community to make sure that we're thinking about what is clean energy and how that aligns with the redevelopment of the Hill District. So they provide knowledge access, they make sure that they're giving trainings, experts, make sure that it's applicable to the community and help with convening and facilitation as necessary. So how the process is working. So the DOE is the umbrella, and that is who is funding the work. It is just technical assistance, but they have brought on NREL to make sure to kind of be that technical service provider for this project. But there is both a Hill District team. So while they are now doing the analysis and things like that, there is a core team that are working on this project. So all the community partners, Hill CDC, Hill Consensus, and the Hill Collaborative are the community partners. And then the technical partners are Green Building Alliance, Duquesne Light, the Energy Innovation Center, and the City of Pittsburgh Planning Department. So as part of this, then we can kind of work through what are the technical assistance priorities that we really want to work on, make sure they're providing feedback and input throughout the process, and make sure that we are the decision makers, if you will, for this work. And so really things that we're really working on is why this came up. So the proposal focused on two different buckets. One was residential energy efficiency retrofits and home repairs. And then the other was looking a little bit more at like, what is the clean energy strategy for the Hill District? And part of it is, if you're familiar with the Hill, you know that there's vacant land, there's the coal seam, there's parcels that there's not a clear path of what they will be. So trying to make sure that yes, where there is planned development or where residents want development, that is maintained. But on some of those steeper ones or some of those environmentally compromised, trying to figure out what's a good strategy. But we did prioritize the energy efficiency work first, and making sure that part of the reason was that is, there's a lot of work and funding coming from the federal government, and even on the state level with the Whole Home Repairs Act, how do we start to get these houses and homeowners kind of teed up and identified to be able to take advantage of the work that's coming and the funding available coming in the next year or two. But why we wanted to do this, so obviously energy and equity. If you have a leaky house and you are spending a lot of money, 60% of the houses in Pittsburgh are over 100 years old. And so because of that, their age and how they're built, there's a lot of money just going literally out the door because of the energy inefficiencies. So making sure that we're really thinking about that. But then trying to make sure that we're building up people in place and connecting everyone to the work. But the why is this has come out of conversations with Hill residents about home repairs and energy efficiency really being important. So we really want to make sure that if you think about making a home energy efficient as possible, so no matter what fuel source you're pulling on, you're going to be able to save energy and not have to call on it as much no matter what. And so making sure we're thinking through on those things before we start thinking of what are the renewable options. So part of this priority is really going to be analyzing the buildings that you do have within there. So that's going to be very quantitative, trying to pull actionable information about how energy is being used, how much energy is being used. There is going to be stakeholder engagement, trying to figure out who are the people who need assistance, how do we get them teed up, how do we come up with a good plan to get people ready to prioritize the action and to apply for funding directly. But part of it will be creating educational materials. Who are the local providers that you can get technical assistance from? Obviously, the Hill CDC has a program. There are other providers happening depending on income level. So making sure that people have as much information as possible at their fingertips. So the goal is really thinking about energy efficiency, how it can be equitably distributed throughout the Hill district, understanding what barriers there may be, and really come up with a plan so that the residents and the CDC and the other CBOs can really apply for the funding, because the federal government, a lot of the funding that's coming have to have MOUs signed with community-based organizations or have the community-based organization as a lead. So really changing how funding is coming to communities right now under the current administration. So where we are now, for the past couple months, we've been working with NREL to refine the scope, and that is almost officially approved by the Department of Energy. So then we will be able to get started probably in the next month or so, trying for this first phase to kind of go until December, and then trying just to start they're already doing a little bit on the back end on the analysis side, but then making sure that we're continuing to meet with people and provide direction. But obviously, energy efficiency saves money. It lowers your utility bills, which is really important. So things that we'll be looking at are sealing air leaks, adding insulation, making sure that people are using energy efficiency lighting, changing out appliances, hot water heaters, windows, doors, things like that, where it makes sense depending on what the condition of people's houses are. And so with that, that is all I have at this time, and I will stop sharing. Let me know if there's any questions.
All right, thank you, Megan. If there are any questions, feel free to raise your hand, or we'll wait and see if there are any that come through on social media. If not, Megan, can you just refresh us on when we can expect to hear back from you all again?
I would assume that once we kind of get going by the next meeting, there should be something to report as about next steps. I really hope that NREL can come to town at some point and kind of have a little bit more direct engagement. But obviously the community-based organizations are a good resource and will keep people in the loop. But yes, I can continue to come back to the bi-monthly and make sure that people are aware of the progress we're making as it continues forward.
Excellent, excellent. All righty. Thank you very much. We look forward to that. And with that, we are going to move to the next part of our meeting. Thank you, Megan. All right. Next up, we have the Hill District Parks Plan. All righty. So as I mentioned, the Hill District Parks Plan is being stewarded and advanced by the City Planning Department of the City of Pittsburgh. They are at a conference, and oftentimes when that happens, the Hill CDC will provide the updates. This is a pretty extensive update, so we're going to try to keep it at a rapid pace. It's a lot of information. There will be an opportunity for the community to engage more deeply in the future. But what you're going to see here is the overall park system for the Hill District: facilities, accessibility, sustainability, context-sensitive design, development principles, and public engagement that has happened around Kennard Park, Albert Turk Graham Park, Ammon Park, Miller Park, Robert E. Williams Memorial Park, University Prep, of course, at Margaret Lyons, Athletic Field, and Vincent's Parklet, okay? Here's a map that shows all of the parks that are a part of the planning effort that has been happening with the City of Pittsburgh's City Planning Department for the master plan for parks in the Hill District. So you see here, all of the parks are named. I won't go through all of them, but they're ones that I just named that are a part of the park system in the Hill District. All right, so the parks that have a green outline are existing green space. So a green outline, this is a green outline. So August Wilson Park, Frankie Pace Park, Peterson Sports Complex, Chauncey Street Steps, Crawford Parklet, Freedom Corner. They call that existing green space. And then green space to be evaluated for enhancement or redesign is outlined in blue. All right, so all of those that are outlined in blue are the focus of this study. And then, of course, green space to be analyzed only and not necessarily analyzed and recommended for enhancement or redesign, but just analyzed are outlined in red. And so that is MLK Park, any of the other green space in the Lower Hill, and then Granville Parklet, okay? All right, these here represent the thoroughfares and the kind of pedestrian walkways that exist, as well as the main streets that connect the park system. And so you all see these streets that are very familiar: Center, Bedford, Wiley, Webster, Kirkpatrick, Crawford Avenue, and of course, Fifth Avenue. Some of the areas that were studied by the consultant Groundswell and the City Planning Department were the feedback that they received from the community, as well as the input that they received from the community, which is represented with these icons. So it was everything from those noted in green, which are restrooms, parking lots, shelters, signage, bike racks. And then, of course, the sports and recreation was represented in orange. And of course, the play space was represented in yellow, and then stormwater management was represented in a medium blue, and swimming pool and splash pad was represented in light blue, and then vegetable garden in dark green. So what you can see here by looking at the priority sites and the existing park amenities are what you find here, right? So they represented what is already here with those amenities. And they also highlighted on this slide bus stops, as well as bike share stations. And I think that that's important, particularly for those who are, outdoors and planning to enjoy the area around the community. People come to the Hill District and in many different ways. People traverse the Hill District in many different ways. And so we want to be sensitive to that. And what you can see here are additional amenities that have been recommended, okay? So just going back one, I'm gonna try to do that without messing up here. So if we go back one, these are the existing amenities. And then if we go forward, those are the additional amenities that are recommended. Okay, and that does not suggest that the amenities that are there are in prime or peak condition. It's only to suggest that they are here for good reason. Excuse me, that they are here in the current condition, but that they could be improved upon. Okay, this was some of the input that was received from residents and stakeholders who attended the meetings. There will be more opportunities to give input, but folks have input all over the map, from too much planning, more action, to celebrating the Black athletic excellence, to wanting to have more voices at the table, more political representation and support. So it's a wide range, but there's actually a lot of opportunity to still give some input. So we're going to encourage city planning to make sure that when they do the formal presentation back to community, that they still are receiving that, because as you all know, a lot of this planning happened through COVID, but that does also need to come to a stop at some point. So we encourage those who are interested to move forward in getting their feedback to us. You can go to the Engage website on the city's website as well, and feel free to reach out to the Hill CDC at any point. We're always happy to make connections with city planning as appropriate. All right. There were some other ideas around what should happen relative to what the input was and where we are. So create a shared vision of success with Hill District residents, create local history and culture, adhere to standards of design excellence and sustainability, respond to geography and climate, connect people to place, create opportunities for people to spend quality time in green space, whether actively or passively, alone or with others. Okay. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Kennard Park. So Kennard Park is the park that is on Kirkpatrick Street, and it is a very, very large swath of land. The observations were that the restrooms are not ADA compliant and need to be upgraded and expanded. The park entrance is blocked sight lines, and vehicles have difficulty turning into the intersection. Pedestrian bridge over Reed Street connects with Wild Public School directly to park, unused due to disrepair of bridge. Views into the park are extremely limited. Connections to adjacent neighborhoods are closed off. And then, of course, opportunities were listed as surrounding woodland areas, providing opportunities for trails and better connectivity to nearby neighborhoods. Change in elevation across the site provides opportunities to create exterior rooms, and large open field provides sufficient space for football field and baseball field. And we know, if anyone is from the Hill, you know that field is a coveted asset for the youth in our community, for football, and maybe to a lesser degree baseball. And so that was a lot of input was around that particular focus area. Okay. All right. So if we look at the map here, or the illustration here, the model that they provided, they just kind of outline where things are by highlighting the park boundary, the pedestrian paths in orange, the disconnected pedestrian paths, vehicular access, the bus route, bike route, steep slope, and existing buildings, existing light poles, and drainage. All right. And so excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm trying to move some things around on my screen here. So these are the existing conditions. So some of the recommendations that they are going to make are highlighted here, where they are really focused on enhancing, right? So if you look at the enhancements that they are recommending, they are plentiful. One, if you have ever been to Kennard, then you know that one of the immediate items is the vehicular entrance to Kennard is essentially the same as the pedestrian entrance, which can be very scary and very dangerous. So they are recommending that the vehicular entrance happen on Kirkpatrick Street, and then that the pedestrian entrance happen right there at the corner that right now cars are coming into. You'll see that there's a ramp with seating that has been recommended, repaved and restriped parking lot, reused structure with amenities, pavilion with amenities, multi-use trail, which is great for, you know, walking and other kinds of activities. And then of course, seating at the playground at the top, seating at the playground edge, an area for picnicking in the grove, and then the hillside is highlighted here. And then they have recommended a spider climber, planters with seating and playscape on the hill, playground and splash pad. Well, we love a good splash pad, right? Kids just love splash pads, so they're always big fun. Additional picnic area along with marching path, and then a marching path and relocated baseball, softball field, and a relocated football field and picnic area at Viewpoint. Okay, so this gives you a sense of the plan that is being recommended. I'm going to pause because that was a lot of information. Would anyone like to ask any questions on this specific part? Because we're going to move to the next. Okay. This is just a zoomed in image of the park, and I'll leave it up here for a second. For those who are going to watch this later, you can pause the screen at this time and you'll have a chance to just study that. All right, and they've broken these sites into different phases. Phase 0 is immediate needs, phase 1 is functionality, phase 2 is enhancement, and phase 3 is expansion. And so they essentially are asking the question for phase 0, what does Kennard need now? Phase 1 is, what does Kennard need to be more functional? Phase 2 is, what would enhance Kennard Park? And phase 3 is, what would make Kennard Park a premier destination park, okay? And so they've done a deeper dive to outline what those things are. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all of the recommendations in great detail, but I am going to pause it here for a second, just for those who want to read it, and I will read the highlights over on the left. So phase 0, porta-johns and portable sinks, painting of existing equipment, repaving and repainting of basketball courts, repair and painting of bleachers, temporary placemaking activations, and then of course site furniture, planters, and trash cans, okay? And so you'll see here that those are the immediate recommendations that they are making for Kennard. Also, these are just images that, you know, and case studies that were cited for those who are interested in, you know, what's happening in other cities and areas. Phase 1, new football field, including grading and sod, football goalposts, restrooms, equipment storage, drinking fountains, monument park signage, wayfinding signage, site furniture, benches, bike racks, repaved and restriped parking lot, bike share bikes, mural by local artists, and fence at property line, okay? So those are the phase 1 recommendations for Kennard Park. Again, just some case studies that have been cited. All right, phase 2, plaza, a pavilion, site lighting, scoreboard, playground equipment, climbing wall, nest swings, early childhood play equipment, rope, spider web, ramps, play and seating structures, perimeter walking path, more bleachers, and site furniture, including tables and grills. Okay, some case studies. And phase 3 would be rerouting entrance and repaved parking lot, splash pad, exercise circuit, little league field, musical instruments, amphitheater, sledding hill, artwork, new plantings, stormwater management feature, and tennis court. And again, some case studies for those who are interested in looking those up. All right. Are there any questions on Kennard? If not, I'm going to move forward to Albert Turk Graham Park. All righty. So Albert Turk Graham Park is the park that is right behind Miller School. So if you know where the Crawford Square area is, then you probably know where Miller Street is. And on Miller Street, there is a former elementary school called Miller School. Behind Miller School is a park area called Albert Turk Park. All right, Turk Graham Park, excuse me. All right, so the existing conditions of that park are existing playground equipment, existing picnic area, steep topography change, existing retaining walls for grade mitigation on the eastern border, and then opportunities are celebrate great views of the city, create more occupiable gathering seating areas, close proximity to downtown, update playground equipment and play surfacing, update park signage, plant canopy trees in lawn areas to provide shade and beautification, coordinate seating location with tree canopies, repair walls where needed, and use existing chain link fence for short-term local artist installations, okay? And these are just existing condition photos that you're seeing. The toolkit that they're recommending for this particular park is a wayfinding system and signage, site lighting, playground equipment and surfacing, climbing wall, art installations by local artists, and then of course site furniture, benches, tables and chairs, bike racks, trash cans, and then new plantings, canopy trees, and native meadow. Here's an analysis and design illustration for you, just for you to get a sense of the actual area. So again, this is Miller School here. This is Miller Street. And then there's flat area and park expansion opportunity that's been highlighted here in the grid. And then you have, of course, the highlights that they just talked about, including additional trees, flat area, removal of existing fence, and planting new street trees, and then enhancing the pedestrian entrance. Okay, all right. Here are the recommendations for Ammon Park. Then Ammon Park, for those of you who are not familiar, is located behind Ammon Recreation Center and the swimming pool on Bedford Avenue and Macedonia Church of Pittsburgh. And so the observations that they made are future updates to the play equipment are planned, existing multi-sport court, existing steep grade change on site and surrounding streets. And then of course, opportunities use existing topography to create a more interesting play experience, explore program opportunities on multiple sport court, update park signage, incorporate nature play elements, incorporate art installations by local artists, and add shade structures near pool. Here are some examples, and I just the toolkit is I've already highlighted that on the prior slide, and then this just gives you an illustration in greater detail, highlighting park boundary, the pedestrian paths, the vehicular access, and disconnected pedestrian paths as of now. Okay, so that is Ammon. Those are the recommendations for Ammon Park by the consultant that the city of Pittsburgh hired, Groundswell. Miller Park, all righty. So, so this particular toolkit includes wayfinding signage, site lighting, mural basketball courts and games. Site furniture they are recommending is would include benches, tables and chairs, bike racks, trash cans, new paintings, canopy trees, pollinators, and rain garden and student garden plots. All right, so where exactly is Miller PPS or Miller School Park is right by Miller Public School, which as you all know is now Miller African Centered Academy on Bedford Avenue. Sorry, I probably could have made it a little more clear that the prior park, Albert Graham Park, is behind the old Miller School, which is closed. If you don't know that, I just want to reiterate that. This is the current Miller African Centered Academy, and we'll make sure that they use the full name there in the final plan, and it is on Bedford. Okay, so the observations were Miller Park is a part of the Pittsburgh Miller School, an African-centered academy that promotes history and culture of people of African descent and principles of the Nguzo Saba, which are the 7 principles that are central to the Kwanzaa holiday. The school focuses on human-centered design. Opportunities: add surface murals to basketball courts, renovate the baseball diamond to lawn field to keep maintenance costs down, update park signage, develop student garden plots, develop pollinator gardens and rain gardens, including plant tags and educational signage. I think that's Arboretum, all right? So those are the recommendations for the park near Miller Park, Miller African Centered Academy, all right? And this is an illustration of where those things will be located based on the actual site map, okay? So student garden plots, you see down here on Bedford, and then you see the pollinator and rain gardens further into the campus. You see more pollinators in rain gardens, as well as flat areas highlighted, and improvement of the basketball courts and mural opportunity. And then, of course, restoring the baseball field is a recommendation as well. Okay. All right, let's move on to Robert E. Williams Memorial Park. So the recommendations that are being made for Robert E. Williams Memorial Park are wayfinding signage, site lighting, ADA circulation, viewfinders, art installations by local artists, site furniture including benches, tables and chairs, bike racks, trash cans, and then new plantings, pollinators and rain gardens, and native meadow. All right, so here, if you are not familiar with Robert E. Williams, it is in the Upper Hill District, surrounded by Finland Camp and Adelaide Streets in Milwaukee. It is a significantly sized site that has a reservoir, as well as a recreation center, a walkabout, a memorial, and it is, you know, it sits pretty high up in the city. I believe it's one of the highest located sites in the entire city. So amazing and incredible vistas from this park. All right. So moving forward, you'll see the site that they are proposing in terms of either enhancements or the existing location. So the proposed ADA parking is located here. I believe that's if you come up Milwaukee Street, if you're familiar with this area, if you're coming up Heron Avenue, you can make a right onto Milwaukee Street. If you're driving towards the Strip District, make a right onto Milwaukee Street, and this is where you would land. So they are recommending that the ADA parking happen right at the top of that driveway, and that there's additional ADA parking. Right now, most of that is green space. And they are recommending a new proposed building that it would replace the existing recreation center building. And I know that that has been under conversation for quite some time with Councilman Lavelle. And then, of course, a proposed basketball court. All right. Here are the City of Pittsburgh staff working on the Robert E. Williams Park. And I'll leave this here for 1 second. Councilman Lavelle, I know, has been convening around this particular topic for at least the past 3, perhaps 4 years. And I know that there was a meeting recently at which point a lot of what we're sharing tonight in these upcoming slides was shared. There's a lot of interest in seeing this park move forward quickly. And so we want to just make sure that you all have the appropriate contact. So on the left, you have the city employees, and then on the right, you have the design team that was hired by the city to execute on this plan. This is just a different kind of mapping of what I just shared with you. And here's a 3D rendering. So you'll see that they are dealing with the elevations by lifting the park, the basketball court a bit, and activating a rooftop usage at this park that would be level with the basketball courts and the ADA parking, of course, as well as play space. From the inside, you would have space that would be, recreation space, conferencing space, space that could be utilized for the community. It's a very active residential community, and so it's frequently used for family reunions and other types of activities within the community. This just gives you an example of somebody coming in from one of the elevations. and another image. Okay, so the Pavilion Plaza deck goals are for it to be durable outdoor furniture and shading, sufficient and flexible open gathering space to maximize views to the park and the city line, to create a strong connection between the building and landscape. Universal accessibility is, of course, a priority. There is definitely a mature population in that area, and so we want to make sure that accessibility is seriously considered. And then, of course, the maintenance and durability of this space are a priority. They are looking for community input on the different design options of the flooring. If you have an opinion about that, feel free to email your opinion to the Hill CDC or to Councilman Lavelle more specifically, or to city planning. And I'm certain that that information will be considered. All right. If there are no questions, if there are, please feel free to raise your hand. We'll obviously have an opportunity to answer your questions if you ask them here. If not, feel free to follow up with us. And of course, you can ask questions through Facebook as well. All right, so UPrep, our athletic field. So UPrep at Margaret Malayan School has an entire athletic campus there, inclusive of a football field, baseball field, tennis courts, and basketball courts. And so the observations were that the field is adjacent to a 6th through 12th grade magnet school. School is partnered with the University of Pittsburgh and embraces college-going culture, existing school track and field facility. There is an existing tennis court, as I just mentioned, and then opportunities to improve public access, incorporate new signage and wayfinding is also an option. Some of the toolkit recommendations are a wayfinding system, shade, site furniture, including benches, picnic tables and chairs, bike racks, trash cans, new plantings, including pollinators and rain garden, and of course, new meadows. Okay. Again, these are case studies. As you can see from this rendering here, this is a very large campus of sports amenities. And so again, you have the football field, you have a soccer field, you have a built-in baseball field also that is sometimes drawn here or down here. You have a shade structure that they are recommending be implemented here. And then of course, native plantings and a flat area, and then improved parking and drop off. And then here are the tennis courts as well. You can see the park boundary is in blue, and then vehicular access comes off of Iowa Street into the campus. All right. And then we have Vincent's Parklet here. This is in the Middle Hill District, tucked away behind Wanlish Street. And the observations here, if you know where, let's see, probably the best way to explain it is it's between Francis and Wanlish Street. And so, and Morgan is kind of one of the nearby streets as well. So for those of you who are familiar with that area, that just gives you a little bit of grounding. Near Trinity AME Church, this park is near that area. Okay, so the community parklet is the observations are basketball court, community parklet, existing playground, existing large open space, and then opportunities are to improve connectivity within the park, expand the playground, add natural play elements, install additional lighting, and add new signage and wayfinding, add ADA parking and pathways, refresh site furnishings, add native low maintenance meadow plantings and canopy trees, and incorporate surface mural at basketball courts. Okay, so that's a lot. But those are the things that are being recommended. I just read them, so I won't go back through it. But that does summarize, plus these case studies, what the recommendations are for Vincent's Parklet. This is just another highlight of the location and of the street. So there's Wanlish Street, there's Hollis Street there, and then Francis is a little further down by Wesley AME. and then here's Webster. So the boundary streets are Wanlis. I think this is Center is down here. So I believe, I'm sorry, my orientation is off. But at any rate, Wanlis, Webster, and Hollis Street. Okay. All right. So again, these recommendations were made by Groundswell Design Group. They have been commissioned by the City of Pittsburgh to complete our Hill District Master Plan, working in partnership with them and Hill CDC and other stakeholder groups throughout the community, whether they be RCOs or interested parties such as the football, Youth Football League. So it's been a process that's been going on for over a year now. We do encourage you to provide any feedback to us or to city planning directly, and we will be happy to share that information. Are there any questions relative to the parks?
Hi, Marimba. There is a question from Facebook from Bomani House. States, joined a few minutes ago, who is the planner making these recommendations and where are these results posted? And then input phase is over, question mark.
So two comments on that. The recommendations can be put on Engage, the website for the City of Pittsburgh, their Engage website. I do not know at what level recommendations can still be made because the process has been going on for about 1.5 years now. But we do strongly recommend that if you are unable to make your input at the Engage website, and Chavisha, I'll ask you to post that, even if we can't do it during the meeting, if you come back and review this video, you will have an opportunity to see where the Engage page is. And if you have issues locating the Engage page, you can feel free to email info@hilldistrict.org or the City Planning Department. You can also email Councilman Lavelle. Of course, this is the city project, and Rebecca Rinaldo is the community outreach person at the mayor's office. And then in terms of community input, I would say that we are presenting this at this stage, but city planning and the parks planners, I'm certain, will have at least another engagement and presentation. So I would say any input that you like to share, you should definitely send it in now, or look out for another meeting. But I would highly recommend that you send it in now. Any other questions, Chavisha?
Nope, I don't see anything else.
All righty. Okay, so we are going to now jump to the next update that we have for you. All right, so the next update that we have for you is about Freedom Corner. And unfortunately, this staff person who works for the city had an emergency, and they weren't able to attend today's meeting, but they did ask for us to just let you know that the process is continuing, that there aren't a lot more updates, but of course we are very excited that that the process has started, improvements and efforts are underway. If you've driven by Freedom Corner, for those of you who do not know, Freedom Corner is a historic site celebrating the African-American cultural legacy in bricks and mortar at the corner of Center and Crawford Street in the Hill District. And it is a historic site that is also considered sacred ground in our neighborhood. It was hit by a vehicle last summer, late summer, and since that time, a working group has been working to find a solution to make improvements and to possibly bring additional capital to the project. All right, so improvements are underway. Definitely want to recognize the City of Pittsburgh in those efforts, and the investment has largely come from the City of Pittsburgh to make the investments at Freedom Corner that you are seeing happening. And so we're really thrilled to see that happening. The efforts that are being made now, of course, were approved by city planning and construction has started. All you have to do is drive by. There will be an introduction of some seating at the site. When I say seating, it's kind of like made out of the stone, very complementary to the site limited. And then there are ongoing discussions about how to raise money to support the efforts that are happening, but also long-term maintenance. And then if you have interest in ongoing updates about Freedom Corner, beyond what has been shared here, feel free to contact Councilman Lavelle's office or the Hill CDC. Okay, and that's just an aerial view, not of the monument now, but after it was hit by a vehicle. You can see how it was cracked here in the front. Some of the other issues that were cited were the sidewalk was breaking up, the debris, the gathering of water, which was a drainage issue. So a lot of those issues we are trying to incorporate in a comprehensive solution. However, it will take ongoing capital in order to do some of that work. So we're going to celebrate the repairs that are happening, and the rapid response. And then, of course, we certainly want to continue to fundraise to support this monument and other important cultural monuments and sites in our neighborhood. It's very important that we preserve those. Are there any questions about Freedom Corner? All right. If though there are no questions about Freedom Corner, I am going to just do a quick Alcosan refresh. You all know that Alcosan is engaged in what they call the Clean Water Plan. Alcosan provides wastewater treatment services to 83 communities in Allegheny County, including the city of Pittsburgh. If you have never done a tour of the Alcosan plant, I strongly encourage you to do that. It will really open your eyes up to the whole wastewater treatment process. It is quite incredible. And they are located in the north side of Pittsburgh, also kind of like bordering the McKees Rocks area. They have 59 acres of wastewater treatment plant and 250 million gallons per day are treated. And then, of course, they operate 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year, and they are completely funded by ratepayers, people who pay their Alcosan bill. That's who funds their efforts. Although only 20% of the service area have combined sewer systems, the area is populated by 50% of the customer base. Okay, Alcosan owns only 90 miles of interceptors. The rest is municipal and authority owned, all right? So the problem is that during rainwater or snow melt, storm water overwhelms the system and diluted, untreated wastewater spills into rivers and streams. And I know that you all know that that is not a good thing. As little as 1/10 of rain can cause overflows, and 9 billion gallons per year overflow from the system. So that's a lot of overflow that is going into our rivers and streams, okay? So that's untreated, untreated overflow, wastewater that's going into the rivers and streams. Alcosan has a proposed regional tunnel system that they are proposing in order to address the combined sewer overflow issue that they are facing and that we as a region are facing. And this is the regional tunnel system. Again, this is just a refresh. We did a deep dive into this presentation at our last bi-monthly plans meeting. So we're not going to go back into all of the detail of that because we are not the experts on this. We just wanted to make sure it stayed on your radar. And so you can go to the last meeting and we can put a link in the chat, in the comments for you to view the full presentation. All right, but this gives you an example of the tunnel system that they are proposing and the portion of proposed system in the Hill District area. All right, so they are proposing a tunnel system that will go, I cannot remember how deep underground it is, but it is extremely deep underground. There would be no disturbance, as we have understood from them, to the residences, to the area, because it would essentially be tunneled in from on the other side of the river. And so as you can see, this is proposed for right underneath essentially the top of the lower hill. Okay, so if you like Crawford Street, you want to think Crawford Street. So everywhere from Crawford Street going both south, excuse me, and north, all right, is that proposed yellow line. Okay, and there are other communities obviously that that would also host this tunnel, but we do want to make sure this stays on your radar because it is a project of significance for multiple reasons. One, the environmental, questions, concerns, and items that we want to keep on our radar at all times, because that is important to our quality of life and the livability of our neighborhood and our region. As the combines the overflow issue is an environmental issue as well, right? So you have the issue of untreated sewage that's flowing into our rivers and streams, but you also have the issue of, okay, now we are looking to, or at least Alcosan is looking to solve this issue. What are the impacts of that actual construction and tunneling through what is, a neighborhood? And then, of course, there are economic opportunities that are going to exist with that. This is going to be a very expensive project that happens over a span of time. If you are a small business owner, an MBE, a WBE, we strongly encourage you to make outreach to Alcosan to see if there are opportunities for you to participate. We always encourage participation. Of course, anything that touches our neighborhood. Are there any questions about this presentation? One last thing, let me highlight here that the sewer system today is a shared responsibility with the property owner's responsibility highlighted in yellow, the municipality's responsibility highlighted in orange, and then Alcosan's responsibility highlighted in blue. And so I thought that this rendering could be helpful, but again, if you have questions and or a deep dive, want a deep dive understanding, please log on to our last bi-monthly plans meeting where there's a presentation from an Alcosan employee. I will answer any questions that I can answer today, but here is your contact, Joseph Valerian, and his email address, who can help to direct you to any more specific questions and answers that I cannot get to. Anything? Shavesha, is there anything out there?
Sorry, it was on mute. No, we don't have anything on Facebook.
All righty, we're rounding the corner here. We should be done in less than 15 minutes. So thank you all for attending and hanging in there. We know this is a lot of content, but there's always a lot happening in the Hill District. So we only have 2 more presentations, and then we'll give you an opportunity again to ask any questions or make comments, and then we will be done. So we wanted to make sure we updated you on Choice. Choice is a Bedford Dwellings neighborhood initiative that is a part of a federal program, of course, that, excuse me, called Choice. So the federal program comes from HUD, which is the Housing and Urban Development Department on the federal level, and they have a program called Choice that our neighborhood has applied for. This will be the second application. So HACP has submitted the application for $50 million at the beginning of this year. And so we just wanted to refresh you on what is in that plan and the parties involved. So essentially what we're looking at for the proposed plan that went to HUD is 49% replacement units, and that would be, so the thing about Choice you have to remember is it's never the same size as the number of units that existed. It's always much larger. So right now we have over 400 units of housing at Chauncey and Summers Drive, right? So all of those units along Bedford total 400 plus units, right? And so what you will see in Choice is essentially the doubling of units, which means that the intent, and of course, Hill CDC is, here to act as an accountability partner to the greatest extent possible, but ultimately that responsibility has to fall on the city of Pittsburgh and the housing authority of the city of Pittsburgh. But what is being proposed is that 49% of the total number of 832 units will be replacement units of what's there. Okay, so all of the units that are currently there will be replaced, And that would be 49% of the new total of 832. Then you would have 26% of the new units of the 832 would be affordable units, okay? So that would be 26% of the 832 units, all right? And then last but certainly not least, you have the market rate units, which would be 25% of the total number of 832 units. All right, so that breakdown is explained here in this diagram, where you can see that the site, the year that the site is proposed for construction, and some of this may change. I just want to be, clear that some of this may evolve. This is an extensive project. There are a lot of implications. Some things will not change, but some things will change, right? And so, such as the phased approach, or the number of units may go up or down a bit. It shouldn't be drastic, but it may be, it may vary from what you see here. So what do you see here? You see Summers Drive, all right? So that's 73 units, and they are proposing that this is, give me 1 second, I need to move something on the screen here. They are proposing that, well, let me start at the bottom, actually, forgive me. So in 2023, they are proposing, that's this year, that Reed Roberts host 123 units under construction this year, okay? That was approved by the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency and with Trek Development and the Housing Authority's nonprofit development arm called ARMDC, okay? So we should be looking for that project to get approved, to move forward, because it's largely been financed. Now, the thing about the funding that you get from the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency is it doesn't fund your project 100%. So there are always still gaps that need to be filled. But I would presume that a lot of that additional funding is going to come. In fact, I know it will come from the Housing Authority of the City of Pittsburgh. There are probably going to be some other sources of funding brought to that project, but you should definitely be looking for that project to move forward in short order. Now, you also have Cities Edge, which is 110 units. Now, Cities Edge is a project that is working with Choice. It is not a Choice project unto itself. So this is a project that has been stewarded by Midpoint Development for the past 6 years. They've worked very diligently. They've secured a lot of community input. They did complete the development review panel favorably. You can find more about the early stage proposed project at hilldistrict.org/DRP. I know that there's been some value engineering and also the incorporation of additional affordable units. So they are also proposing that this project moves forward in 2023 with 110 units. My understanding is that the first phase of residences that will move are those who live on Summers Drive right now. And why is that? Because the plan is for then Summers Drive to be under construction in 2025, which will be very important. You'll also note that Francis Street is planned for 2024. And Francis Street, for those of you who are familiar with the Hill District, is, Francis Court is on Bedford Avenue. And you know that that site has been vacated for quite some time, and that those units were taken down by the Housing Authority years and years ago. So that is a vacant site. So a lot of the residents are, of course, very eager to stay in that area and want to be in Francis. And then some, of course, will want to move to Reed Roberts and maybe other places. But so that's the plan. So you see those first 4 blocks: Reed Roberts, Cities Edge, Summers Drive, and Francis Court, slated all before 2025. That's a lot of units for the next 2 years. And then you see in the middle here and down at the bottom on the right, you see West Chauncey and East Chauncey, which is proposed for 112 units at West Chauncey and 60 units at East Chauncey. And then they are proposing 146 units for Heron Avenue as well. We have been advocating, of course, for that to include a commercial corridor and other amenities and other opportunities, because Heron Avenue is one of the Hill District's commercial corridors, and we don't want to lose that opportunity to purely residential. So we do want to put that on your radar, that is something we are advocating for. But this is the plan, all right? So I know that that's a lot of information. I do want to give people just a chance to, look at that. Are there any specific questions on this slide? Because I have a couple of more on choice, but I do want to give you a chance to look at this slide and ask any questions if there are any.
Are there indications that Reed Roberts is actually going to start anytime soon?
Physically, I would have to drive by the site, but the funding was awarded from the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency. So it is not, they have very specific dates that you have to place a development in service. And so I would expect that if they want that to keep that funding, and I'm certain that they do because it is the most competitive funding out there, that they will be starting in short order. And that, of course, the Housing Authority submitted again this entire project with Trek Development. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Having none, I will move over here now to, let's see. The next slide. I just walked through these phases, so forgive me, I didn't realize that this was here, but for those of you who are rewatching, you can now see how they have the phases ordered. Okay. All right, so just as a refresher, the choice program requires development in 3 buckets: housing, people, and neighborhood. And so the sites that I just talked about are really focused on housing, but there's a people component of the plan that is really focused on working directly with families and individuals who currently live in Bedford dwellings to help them to reach their individual success goals, as well as, any supportive services that they need. And so that's a part of the choice program. And of course, that's a part of the application as well. And then, of course, neighborhood is focused on the area surrounding the housing development. So the interesting thing about choice that is new to that program versus historic housing programs that came out of HUD is that it's focused on an entire transformation area. It's not just the public housing site. It's the entire area around the public housing site. So in this particular situation, what you have is an entire neighborhood that's been included for all intents and purposes in the Bedford Choice area up to Heron Avenue and down to the foot of the Lower Hill District. So all of that is within the choice area. It's no secret that we have advocated that units for this development be put into the Lower Hill District. And we will continue to advocate that position because with 800+ units that are coming to the neighborhood, there's enough opportunity to spread those units around and for people to have an opportunity to enjoy all parts of the neighborhood. And to ensure that affordability is available in all parts of the neighborhood. That's critically important. All right, so I've already told you that the application was submitted in January of 2023 for $50 million and a response is expected this summer. All right, are there any other questions relative to choice? All right, we're gonna move forward to what I believe is our last agenda item here. And that is the Lower Hill, the preliminary land development plan and Block E. Quick update, you all know that the Hill CDC was advocating for quite some time to ensure that the Lower Hill District is redeveloped in an equitable manner. And there were some very specific asks that we had of the City Planning Commission at their last meeting on January 24th at 2 p.m. And that meeting, of course, was held, and that's available to you at the City Planning's YouTube site. And you can see the entire meeting there. But we wanted to reshare this because many of you probably saw this flyer, and we wanted to reshare and give you just the update of what happened and where we are. So, so as you all know, the city, the Pittsburgh Penguins, through their redevelopment group, PAR, have amended their preliminary land development plan. The preliminary land development plan is the master plan for the redevelopment project for the Lower Hill District. Okay, so it is the governing document. And so we were trying to get them to formally attach the community benefits agreement to the preliminary land development plan so that we do not have to advocate on a consistent basis for equity and for support of the community benefits that have been agreed upon. And you know that our community benefits agreement is called the CCIP, the CCIP, for Community Collaboration and Implementation Plan. And we wanted to see that attached. We were also asking for, there are several things we were asking for. I'm just going to refresh you on this because some of them are still relevant and some of them are going to come up again soon. We were also asking for the Pittsburgh Penguins and the developer to respond to Macedonia Church of Pittsburgh and to address the commitments made to Ammon Recreation Center and to the Hill CDC on promises made for the upgrade of Ammon. And you can see that the city is working on a master plan for Ammon, and that's great. But there were some very clear commitments made by the development team to invest into Ammon. And those commitments were made probably now 3 years ago. And they said they were going to invest $1 million into Ammon Recreation Center. However, Ammon has only received about $100,000 of that, maybe $120,000. And so there's still another $900,000 of improvements and commitments that we are expecting to happen in Ammon. There was a commitment that would be worked on with Macedonia Church of Pittsburgh, because if you know anything about the Hill District and or Macedonia Church of Pittsburgh, you know that it is the Hill District's, I believe, largest congregation and one of the largest African-American congregations in the city of Pittsburgh. And they have a need to expand their physical building. They have been working on this project for quite some time. And in fact, Macedonia Church of Pittsburgh staffed Ammon and helped Ammon through a very difficult time when the city was underfunded. And so there was the intent to work together with Macedonia Church of Pittsburgh to hear and understand and appreciate their needs, but also to make sure that that Ammon could be developed in a way that really kind of honors the community. And so that's another thing. And then, of course, we have the commitments that were made to the Hill CDC, which are to work with us relative to the redevelopment of New Granada and programming. All of those promises remain unfulfilled. If you were hearing from the developer tonight, they would probably say there are conversations happening. The challenge with conversations only happening right now is that approvals to transfer land are being requested at this time, right? And so once land is transferred, it's very hard to get promises fulfilled to the community. So we continue to ask for the commitments to be fulfilled. It is something that is essential to our support as an organization and as a registered community organization. And we want to make sure that residents understand that those are commitments that need to be fulfilled before approvals are made by the city, by the Urban Redevelopment Authority and the Sports and Exhibition Authority to transfer the land. Unfortunately, the City Planning Commission said that they did not believe that their role was to weigh in on these commitments. We don't agree with that perspective. And the reason why we don't is because the City Planning Code expressly states that the City Planning Commission is responsible to a degree of vetting and ensuring socioeconomic impact, a positive socioeconomic impact on the city. And we're asking, can you really do that if the community, the host community, is not being made whole? And so, so at any rate, the City Planning Commission and some of the elected officials seem to have agreed that it wasn't their job, did not require them to do it, and therefore they did not condition their Block E approval for the music venue, which is highlighted in the picture at the top. They did not highlight those conditions in their final approval. Now, they did give an update to the community on Bethel AME. I don't think that that deal has been finalized. I'm happy to hear from anybody in the audience who may have an update, but it's my understanding that that deal has not been finalized, but there was a commitment to transfer some land to Bethel AME, who was displaced from the Lower Hill District in the 50s, and their land was taken. The Hill CDC advocated for $2 ticket surcharge for community needs, and the Penguins and PAR did make that commitment in headlines. They said it in the news, but they have not actually come back to say that they, in writing, in any form, that they are going to do it, right? So we're looking for some contractual agreement there. We have still not heard back on the $2 parking surcharge. In fact, I'm pretty sure the developer said that they weren't going to do that because parking is too competitive. But we would still like to see that considered. The inclusionary zoning was not conditioned. That was a huge disappointment to our community. In the preliminary land development plan, there was an opportunity for the city of Pittsburgh to require inclusionary zoning for affordable housing and affordable business space for the Lower Hill, and they did not require that there be any inclusionary zoning in the preliminary land development plan. This is a huge disappointment given that we know that affordability in the Hill District is a major issue. That would have been a great opportunity for the city to prove that they want to be a city for all, but they did not take that step to demonstrate in the regulatory forum that there's a real commitment there. So that's a major concern for us. However, again, they have made that decision and the preliminary land development plan was approved. We have asked them also to address Zone 2 and public safety concerns. You all may or may not know that all of the land between the tower that's being constructed now and the future commercial site has largely been privatized. This is public land that was sold for $10 per parcel and then privatized. And our concern was that people walking through the site would be subject to, even though it's a public right-of-way, right? So understanding the language, a public right-of-way means that the public is allowed to use it, but it's still privately owned, right? And so we know it's also then still going to be privately secured. And so we are very concerned that the privatization of such an important thoroughfare, because if you're walking from the middle of Wiley downtown, you've got to cut right through the green space. And unfortunately, that land has been privatized and will be privately secured along with city police. And so we're concerned that that is not going to be the most pedestrian friendly for Hill District residents to cross through and to traverse on their way home from work, on their way home from, you know, celebrating something downtown, or, you know, back and forth for whatever reason, or just sitting there and listening to their iPod or their, I guess, iPod's not a thing anymore, but you know, to their iPhone, whatever they're playing on their device. So anyway, I won't belabor the point any further. We're happy to do a deep dive discussion on that. We did that at the last Parks Planning meeting, but we wanted to update you and let you know that city planning did not address this in any substantive way, nor has the city addressed this in any substantive way, and we are concerned about it. The Curtain Call project is still underfunded. The Pittsburgh Penguins stated that they were going to invest in the Curtain Call project. They have not done that, and they have not had a public input session to determine whether or not the community is okay with the Curtain Call being moved. So this is something that just has never been addressed, and they need to handle that. We did ask for them, the City Planning Commission, to reduce allowable maximum building height. Many people have let us know that they are shocked by the height and size of the tower on the Lower Hill. It's one thing to see things in a picture, but when you see it in real life, it can sometimes be a whole different thing. And so we understand and appreciate that because we are engaged in development, but a lot of people did not foresee the scale and size of the building. And so we asked that they reduce the maximum building heights and for future developments and or consider those impacts differently. Unfortunately, they did not make any adjustments there. The developer did not, and the city did not require them to. We also asked for environmental impacts from the traffic and parking. This is going to be a 908 parking space garage in the picture above. as you can see, and a 4,000 plus entertainment venue. That is going to be significantly impactful to the livability of our neighborhood because of the number of vehicles that are going to be coming in and out of the Hill District. And so we just wanted them to more transparently evaluate the impacts, environmental impacts, smoke, smog, that kind of thing, and the traffic impacts. Perhaps they did that with the developer internally, but that really was never discussed in any substantive manner in a forum where there could be true dialogue, only presentations, perhaps with limited opportunities to provide input. So with that said, we just wanted to come back to you and provide an update as to where we landed on those community asks, and let you know that city planning at the first meeting did direct the developer to come back and do a better job of connecting and communicating. And then they gave them 2 weeks to do that. They did that via Zoom. And then they ultimately approved that plan on January 24th with no conditions for the preliminary land development plan. And I believe there were some for Block E, but nothing of substance that we knew offhand. We will revisit that and update you. The next things you need to be aware of are that the URA and the Sports and Exhibition Authority will have briefings in March. The developer is aggressively pushing for a vote to transfer the land in April. That land, I'm going to remind everyone, as I always do, is being sold for $10 per parcel to the developers, and we expect community benefits in return. With that said, I am going to answer any questions that you may have and remind you to stay connected to the Hill CDC. Join our email list by clicking on this link, hilldistrict.org/sign up. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter at My Hill District, and of course on LinkedIn as well. But I'd like to know if there are any questions and or comments, and we are happy to address them now if you have them, and take them from Facebook as well if there are any.
No questions on the Facebook side.
Okay, great. All right. Well, if there are no questions, I want to thank you all for attending our bi-monthly plans meeting. We will be back at you soon to keep you updated and apprised of all of the planning activities that are happening within the Hill District. We thank you for sharing a part of your evening with us tonight, and take care. Goodbye.